Hello. Right. So today, which is relatively new concept for happy operators and the AI and the REST community, but good friend and community member and marketing extraordinaire, Kate, has offered to do a short workshop on some of the interests that she's working on at the moment, which is synthetic personas. I'm going to be very low key in this scenario. I'm just going to hopefully pick up some questions from the chat that people are asking and making sure it gets recorded so we can put it online. So, Kate, hopefully your mic's working and you can say hello. Are you there?
Hello, I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very loud and clear. So, um, take it away. Yeah, Kate. If you have if you need any help, just flag it to me and try my best. If there's any questions that are, I'll raise a hand basically if there's something that's relevant that people might want to know.
Thank you, Matt, for the introduction and for the kind and generous offer to come and share with the community today. So, as you already know, my name is Kate. I'm based in Barcelona. I'm from London originally, but I've been living here for the last 15 years. And in about as much time, I've been working in marketing. I began as a humble copywriter for Vice magazine, believe it or not, but actually over the years ended up managing teams and then most recently working across several edtech companies as a growth strategist, which I'm doing today. In addition to teaching as well. I think since the AI bug bit us all, I'm no exception. And I've been working with master's students mostly on figuring out how to apply AI and AI-powered automation to different marketing processes, such as market research. And that's what we're going to tackle today. Without further ado, I will hopefully flawlessly move this slide. Yes, and it does work. Fantastic. So the idea of market research as a concept, as we all know, is to understand our market. And yet, why do so few companies and teams invest in a research team? I mean, it's something that I noticed over the decade and a bit that I've been doing marketing, that often there is no one dedicated to doing research to understand the trends in the market. It's something that is sort of fragmented across lots of different teams, but there's often no cohesion. And one of the things that really annoyed me a lot is that even as a marketing director, if I suggested I would pick up the phone or organize a Zoom call with a prospect or a customer, I think I'd get funny looks like, surely the intern should be doing that. Surely the marketing exec, not the director. And yet I then understood that there is this perception issue where if we don't talk to your market, how on earth are you going to get those gems of insights that then you can scale and test and then actually implement in a paid ads campaign, for example? Like for me, it's sort of 1 + 1 = 2. But for a lot of people, it's, I don't have time. We don't have someone who does this, not someone qualified to do this. We're just going to go on Google Trends. And then AI came along and completely changed the game. So one of the first things I did was try to test out how I could actually scrape and serve up useful information from the web, about my market. I realized that, using tools like Perplexity, which are trained on academic data and also trained to be extremely cautious when serving up information to make sure that it's factually correct, was an excellent tool to begin with to try and understand, for example, the education space in the United States. I realized that would be a quick way of serving it up. But then talking to peers and also experimenting, I quickly understood that not only could I scrape data and create rather boring looking PDF reports about what's going on in that particular market, where the demand is, but I could actually sort of take things to a kind of Star Trek level and create personas out of this data that represented a segment, give it a name, give it an age, give it life experiences, create multiple ones of them, and then have a conversation, almost like a focus group, but using a Claude chat window. And so the first experiments that I did were, pretty clunky. I would try my best to scrape the right data, put together the profiles. But then I quickly realized that all kinds of biases and all kinds of misleading data are coming up. So the fundamental shift that I made and the aha moment I had that I'm going to share with you today is using retrieval augmented generation. And I'll explain what that means in a second. So why do we even bother to do research or synthetic data research? I suppose we're trying to reduce the risk of spending loads of money, not getting any conversions, and feeling a little bit like that we haven't done a very good job as marketers, right? So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you a process to test ideas for marketing campaigns using AI before actually launching them. So the idea is you no longer need a large research budget, weeks of waiting time for your consultants to produce a big report that no one's going to read, or you're going to skip research and be tempted to skip research due to lack of time, budget, or team capacity. And then just to kind of take away before we even get started, but to get us on the right foot of being results oriented, once you start to see alignment between the feedback from your AI built personas and your real world data, when you do launch those paid ad campaigns or you do launch those email campaigns or those events, then you know that you've got an AI enhanced infrastructure that actually drives results and is repeatable and scalable, because of course you're documenting everything as you're building these personas and as you're interviewing them, right? You're not just letting those chat windows disappear, you're putting the information somewhere. Best practice, right? Build a brain. So I have to say this process is rather remarkable, of using synthetic personas to interview them and test out ideas before launching. 2 anonymized examples from EdTech clients of mine from this year, so Q1. For one company that has an annual turnover of 10 million and about 30 employees. So it's not a very big company, but it's certainly not a tiny startup. It's also been around for 40 years. I did an email marketing campaign and I spoke to and built some AI personas before I launched the email campaign. But I obviously wanted to run a scientific experiment. I didn't want to not be able to report on success. So this is how I did it. I looked at the average of the last 2 years of their email campaigns when they had not touched AI, because they are very not AI company, okay? And we saw that the open rate was on average 22% of their emails, which was not bad, to be honest. They're a pretty engaged audience. And the click-through rate on the CTA button in the email was 2.1%. Again, not shabby at all. So that was my baseline. Created an email campaign, brand fresh new email campaign. And one of them, the emails was completely, had nothing to do with AI. It was written by me and then edited and proofread by the team. The second email, I basically duplicated the first, and then I interviewed my AI built personas on it. And I said, John, what do you think of this email? Is it convincing? Would you click that button? And John said, well, I don't really understand the subject line. I'm not even sure I'd open the email. And I said, oh, why is that, John? And such happened after that, right? So then I ended up adjusting the subject line, adjusting a few details in the actual body of the email, and adjusting the copy on the CTA button. So I'm getting very granular here, but I really want to communicate what I'm doing to get the results that you're now going to see on screen that I'm going to tell you about. So the control group was the email that I didn't interview John and Jane and Jack and Jessica about. I just wrote it based on, again, the needs of the company, the product that they wanted to promote, the message they wanted to get out, and it was signed off by the brand guardians internally. The second email was the product of my interviews with synthetic personas, okay, that were built on and represent the fastest growing segments of this company, okay? And to avoid the bias trap, I had 4 personas that all represent the same segment, but have different life experience. So different ethnicities, different walks of life in terms of social standing, etc. So I was able to get a diversity of opinion, okay? And that particular email that was sent out got a 51% open rate. Another factor, one of the personas told me the best time of day to send that email, that they would then be more likely to see it and open it. And I used MailChimp for the send, and MailChimp's automated, probably inbuilt AI system confirmed more or less the same time, because it obviously can give you best times to send emails. So I thought that was an interesting data parity point. MailChimp is telling me the same thing that my synthetic persona is telling me on ChatGPT. Okay, that's worth testing, okay? And lo and behold, we almost doubled the open rates on the emails alone, subject line and sending. And then the CTR for the actual, within the body copy of the email, we got a 1% increase, which for a CTR, I would say is pretty remarkable. So here's an example of where having a little bit of testing beforehand using AI significantly improved the results of this one particular email campaign. And if we flip over to another use case, a second client, who is much smaller. It's a team of 4 people, seed round of 2.5 million, and they are focused on a completely different area in edtech. They're mostly focused on college level students, and the other was early childhood. I didn't mention that, but yeah, just to give you a bit of flavor for who these types of companies are. And again, we tested out, looking at their historic data, we established a baseline for their meta ads, their click-through rate on ads. Okay. And ads, they're very leveraged on ads being an early stage company. So this was a major channel for them. And we, again, asked the question, if we build AI personas that represent the largest, fastest growing segment of your market and use AI to find that segment and then interview them before we go out with our next set of meta ads, will we see a difference on the click-through rate on those ads? And I think you can see on screen that yes, the answer is affirmative. We were able to create an ad that was purely human driven and purely signed off by the brand guardians within, so the CEO of the company, who understands the tone of voice better than anyone else, who understands the market better than anyone else, right? And then we asked the AI personas that we built. Again, we had about 3 of them. We got some really interesting insights. We took a leap of faith. We then sent out the 2 ads, one purely human driven, the other enhanced by AI. And we saw an incredibly big jump in the click-through rate. We actually saw that the control group also had above average click-through rate, because the offer was basically like a free trial, no credit card upgrade. It was something that people would want, especially when targeted to the 5% who are in market for that type of product. But we definitely saw a better performance on the content that had been run through the AI, let's say, acid test. Okay. So moving on, I'm not going to make broad, grand claims that this is a foolproof process. And with 2 examples in Q1 of 2026, I'm still early days in this myself. But I'm going to walk you through my logic and show you how you can replicate this exercise so you can test it out yourself. Okay. So the first step to creating a persona is having a well-structured prompt. I use Claude for a number of reasons. Not only is Claude trained on human conversation, voice data, voice search data. I mean, pretty much all AIs are, to be honest. But Claude is especially good at being consistent with tone of voice. Whereas on ChatGPT or other AI platforms, the shifts in tone when you ask a persona questions, might be very bland and robotic sounding at times, and other times a bit more charismatic and persuasive. But you see in Claude that once the persona has been built and established, they talk like we talk, using human expressions, ums and ahs. Like it much more feels like a conversation with data than when you're on a different platform. Like Perplexity, for example, very dry, very academic, very fact based. It doesn't have that wit and that persona. I think the only other platform that I would use for this exercise, to be honest, is Grok. Not for factual accuracy, since it uses Twitter as its source data, among other sources, but because it is exceptional at wit and making interesting points and using interesting language that you're just not going to see in ChatGPT. So I would like you, and if you'd like to follow along and actually have something to hold or have after this session, get stuck in, open Claude on your browsers or your phone, depending on how you're joining the session or where you're comfortable doing this. And let's create a prompt together to build our first AI persona, our first synthetic persona for our business. So your prompts will need to have the 5 components on screen, which is context, role, expectation, insurance, and discovery. A quick word on each. Context is absolutely essential for the AI to understand what you're going on about, right? So the richer this part can be, the more detailed this part can be, the higher quality your output's going to be. The rest of these components are about narrowing parameters so that the AI doesn't wildly sweep its data set and serve up hallucinations, right? So we're trying to narrow the scope of possibility and really get a tight, focused, high quality answer. So by doing that, or by achieving that, we assign a role to the AI. So in this case, we might say, you are a market researching expert of the highest order. Or, if you have a market researcher that you follow and like and is in the public domain, you might say, be that person, be her, be him. You can name them. Again, this is so that when you send the prompt, when you send the call, your AI thinks like a world-class marketing researcher. It gets its information from Deloitte, from KPMG, from Statista. It thinks like a researcher. It doesn't just go to Twitter or, it scrapes in certain sources that would be appropriate for that particular profession. The expectation, very simple. You're going to ask how you'd like the data to be structured, what you'd like to see as the output. The insurance is a part that I think is probably, for me, the most important part of a prompt, to be honest with you. It's a single line of text that says, if anything about my prompt is unclear, ask me up to 5 clarifying questions. It's just that string of text. Why? Because again, if there are gaps and holes and vague aspects of your prompt, the AI will make the decision for you. It will then be more prone to hallucinate and serve up rubbish. Okay. So that insurance policy then makes the next step, when you send a call, a series of clarifying questions, which AI will ask you so that you can fill in the gaps and get a higher quality output. And the discovery and the final part of your prompt is going to be to ask for variations. The minute that you do not ask for any variations when you ask AI for some information is the minute that the machine decides for you. Now, we're all very much probably ahead of this conversation around AI is going to replace us, AI is going to steal our jobs. We've heard it for the last few years. It's boring. And it's on some level true and on another level not true, right? AI is going to evolve the workforce. I think that's closer to the truth. However, the minute that you don't ask for options, the minute you just get one answer served up is the moment that the AI has suddenly taken the driver's seat and you are the person who's following along. If you get options, if you're at the buffet and you get to choose the tortilla, the pan con tomate, and the glass of orange juice, you've made that decision, you own it. Okay? So the discovery is simply give me variations, give me options. And just to give you an idea about what your prompt could look like, and hopefully you're typing away as I'm saying this, your context is going to be your business. So I am a fractional CMO serving edtech companies, mostly in North America. That's my business. Your business might be something else. It might be a product. It might be an app. It might be a service. So write it there. And give some details about your ideal customer profile. My ideal customer profile is a CEO of a VC-backed startup or scale-up who's based in London or New York, etc. Right? You're going to give those details, okay, in the context section. In the role section, you're going to simply act as a senior marketing researcher or act as Joe Blogs, a senior marketing researcher who you like and admire in the public domain, okay? The next is expectation. Again, this is very simple. Please create a detailed profile of an ideal customer because we're creating a synthetic persona here. The insurance line is again very simple. If anything is unclear, ask me up to 3 or 5 or 10 or 1 clarifying question. You decide how many questions you get. If you just say clarifying questions, you might get 20 questions. It's happened before. It can take all day, but you decide. And then discovery, create 3 personas that share the traits of my ideal customer, but have different life experiences. Ergo, they're from different parts of the country. They have had different life experiences, went to different universities, or some didn't go to university, right? So that you get a diverse pool of people in your synthetic focus group. All right. This was my aha moment, because even if you 100% rely on AI to create these personas and interview them, they're only as good as what the AI serves up, right? As your prompt is as good as it can be, but there still might be biases and there still might be too much variation in the personas that you create, i.e. they could be faulty, right? This process of retrieval augmented generation, or a fancy way of saying, take your own data, your own ad historical data, your own email results, your own insights about your existing customers or your competitors' existing customers, and upload that to AI as you are creating these synthetic personas. This is what creates your super personas, because you're not just relying on, as I said before, Statista, Gartner, and all these other sources that your AI market researcher is scraping for you. You're also feeding the AI your own data, or data that's much closer to home than the other data that Claude is serving up. So now you ask, what first party data do I have? Well, there are several options. I mentioned one or two, but transcribe conversations between the sales team and prospects. You might be the sales team, by the way, but transcribe those conversations with prospects, put them into Claude. One-on-one interviews with customers. I mean, we can all reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say, hey, I have this product. Can we talk about it? I think that you're the sort of person that would probably at some point buy it. Transcribe those conversations, feed them to Claude. Online reviews of yours or indeed your competitors' products. Copy paste, put them in Claude. Okay, so it's just this very basic way of enriching those personas that you're building with the prompt in the previous slide, right? So it starts with a prompt. It takes it up a level when you enrich those personas with your first party data. And each data source that you add brings you a little bit closer to your ideal customer's authentic language, their real objections as to why they wouldn't buy you, and their genuine motivations as to perhaps why they would. So this is the raw material for a synthetic persona that actually delivers you results. And so now we've got them. We've got our Johns and Janes and Harrys and Henrys, or Juans and Carloses, or, Sahars, or whatever you want to call them. Okay. They might give themselves a name, by the way. That often happens to me in Claude. I don't get to decide their names. But now is the moment of truth. Now is the time to interview them. There are so many different ways you can do this. There's no hard and fast rules about what you ask your personas. One way that might be very easy and very effective is that if you are running a paid ad campaign, or you are starting to run a paid ad campaign next week, you've got the assets back from the designer, everything's looking like it's ready to go, you're adding those final touches to the headlines and the descriptions of your meta ads, and you're thinking, maybe I just want to do one last check, one last check to see if everything here is going to drive those clicks and those conversions down the funnel. So you upload the content to Claude, as much of it as you wish, and say, John, would you click on this, and why not? And you will get unfiltered answers, which I could say is probably even more powerful sometimes than talking to a human being who might be a bit more filtered, okay, especially if it's a friend or a family member, right? So I would interview personas, sharing with them assets that you're about to launch to get a second read on them. Another way of using these synthetic personas is to create an actual brand strategy. And that's what I'm going to show you in the remainder of this masterclass. So are we good for time? I don't want to go over. Matt, are we okay for me to continue a couple more slides?
You are fine for time. I've got a little question.
Go for it.
We're on 23 minutes.
Okay.
When you're using RAG to feed your own data into the personas, how many transcripts or data points do you need to get meaningful results? Is there a minimum?
There is no minimum, no maximum. I mean, I would say it's an ongoing process, meaning that, you're not just going to create your synthetic personas today and forget about them tomorrow. You should be saving that stuff somewhere, right? Like, you should be saving your prompts in a prompt library. You should be saving the results that you get from John, Joe, Jane. You should be storing this data, okay? So that you can go back to it the next time you want to talk to them. And by that sort of logic, when you get another transcription of an interview with someone who could be your customer or who is your customer, and you're asking them, how are you doing? Is the product hitting the notes for you? Any kind of information like that should be then progressively, iteratively fed into further developing and enhancing these synthetic personas. So you're building a brain, basically. You're building a brain, whether it's on a local LLM to protect your information, or whether it's publicly because you're not as sensitive to that. It's a progressive and iterative effort. So I would say, minimum, just please do it, at least something of first party nature, so that the AI is not completely relying on third party sources that are further away from home. But don't ever stop, keep nurturing those synthetic personas so they become ever more accurate and aligned with the segments that you're trying to target.
Perfect answer. All right, you can carry on.
All righty. Do I want to pause here in case there are any other questions? I can't see the chat box, and I would feel bad if there's someone who's asking something that's blocking their process today, because I'm obviously inviting everyone to build personas at the same time as I'm talking. Is there anything, Matt, that I should be?
Well, the only one was you just answered it, and to be fair, that is the only one, I
Okay.
believe. Let me just scroll up. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't see any more. So if anyone raise a question now or forever hold your peace until until the end if we want. No, I think you're good. So carry on.
Awesome. We'll do Q&As at the end, but I just want to make sure that no one's like, blocked from, moving forward, building their persona. So, just a quick recap. What we've done, we've built a prompt, and you'll get these slides afterwards for sure if you want to use this again, to build personas. You've started to potentially enrich them if you have data to the hand. With your first party data, transcriptions, one-on-one interview transcriptions, customer reviews, etc., competitor reviews, and now we're interviewing. Why are we doing this particular set of questions that you can see on screen? Because we're going to interview personas to build a brand positioning strategy for your product. Okay. Again, you don't have to follow this brand positioning strategy that I'm about to share with you, but you can compare it to what you're doing today and you can use it as a point of parity and say, interesting idea. Didn't know that before. Maybe I'm going to try some messaging using this strategy, see how it resonates. Do I get higher clicks or not? It's maybe just a frame of reference, another thing to consider as you progressively go to market with your product or service. So let's build this brand positioning using our interviews with synthetic persona. So in Claude, now you've got your persona, hopefully more than one, hopefully three. Ask them what their two main purchase drivers are, just like the tree. What are your purchase drivers? Top two. Also ask them what words they would use to describe your product. Okay. Again, you're going to get unfiltered feedback. Ask them who the competitors are from their perspective. And it might not be the people that you're thinking of or the companies you're thinking of. That's the beauty of these personas. They are going to dig up things that perhaps you weren't aware of and reveal blind spots to you. And as we all know, there are always more competitors than we think. Ask them also how well these competitors are currently meeting their needs, if at all. And then here's the most important question of all the set. Ask each of your synthetic personas in Claude, how many of you are there? And what is your year-over-year growth? Now, when I've done this exercise and I've asked these questions, I've very quickly discovered that some of the personas represent a growing segment within the segment, and some of the other personas represent either a stagnant group who are not really growing, or indeed a group that might be big but actually are shrinking for various different socio-economic reasons, right? And that has helped enormously on which persona I listen to the most. Once you've understood within your cluster of synthetic personas which one represents the fastest growing segment, the largest growing, you probably want to align your company growth to that segment, right? You're not going to align it to the shrinking segment. So once you've understood of your three personas, and you might be lucky and all of them represent fast growing segments, then you're in the money. Fantastic. Listen to all of them in that case. But let's just say one of them, only one of them represents a fast growing segment. Okay, choose that persona. My one's called, whatever, Daniel. Okay. So with Daniel, or your version of Daniel, you're now going to write the following prompt context. From now on, my focus is going to be Daniel. Okay, I'm going to focus on Daniel. We're now going to use Daniel's two purchase drivers, he's told me in the previous step, as the X and Y axes of my perceptual map. Perceptual map, you're going to see in a minute what that's all about, but okay. And just by the way, Daniel told me that price and quality are his two main purchase drivers. So next part of the prompt, build a perceptual map that shows where competitors sit in the mind of my persona Daniel relative to the two purchase drivers he gave me, price and quality. Identify on this map, so where the competitors are in the brain of Daniel, like how he perceives them, like more expensive, less expensive, higher quality, lower quality. And then identify where the sort of demand area is, where Daniel is most likely to buy at. Does it have to be super high quality and super cheap for Daniel to buy? Or does it have to be high quality and middling pricing? Okay. I want to know where Daniel is going to be most likely to buy. And guess what? I want to position my product in that space. Okay. And that's what the next 6 to 12 months of my brand messaging strategy is going to be all about. Positioning myself in that growing demand spot in Daniel's mind. Okay. Hopefully I'm not talking gobbledygook here. Hopefully you're still with me. But okay, I'm going to show you a visual in a sec, just in case it's unclear. And then the final part of this section of your prompt is going to be, if anything in my prompt is unclear, ask me up to 3 clarifying questions. Yes, that old rope, that question again. Because again, if I'm doing something slightly complex using AI, I want to make sure that my prompt is rock solid. And I'm a human, I make mistakes. There you go, I just made another one. I want a way to know that I am putting together the best prompt I possibly can. So AI, please ask me questions if anything's unclear. So if you're putting this into Claude right now, having chosen your key persona that represents the fastest growing segment in your industry, you should get something that looks a little bit like this. So it's truncated, but you'll get like a kind of ugly looking XY graph with like the 2 purchase drivers, so price and quality, and then you'll get the names of your competitors scattered around. There's brand B that's sort of higher price, higher quality, and then you'll get the lower, cheaper products that are not as great quality, and then some idea of where the demand space is. And using this map, you can, as I mentioned before, start seeing where the demand area is, like where Daniel's most likely to buy. What type of price? Middling, high, actually low? Is he very price sensitive for my product? And then, what kind of quality he will buy at. Does he just want something that works, God damn it? Or does he want something that's like, the Bugatti of your industry before he would even consider it, right? So which industry are you playing in? And what does your segment think about you and think about competitors, right? All the elements of brand strategy. Now, obviously place yourself somewhere on this map. Maybe you're not in the right place. Maybe people think of you as a bit too cheap or a bit too low quality, and they're only going to buy if the price is fairly middling and the quality is very high. Well, you have to do a lot of R&D on your product, so it's high quality. And in your messaging, you have to convince people that you are high quality and that your price is reasonable. Okay. And that will be your main brand messaging exercise, as I said, for the next 6 to 12 months, because nothing in the brand world works overnight. Normally it takes a long time to actually have people register who you are, what you represent. Don't forget your AI personas in any of this process. When you go out with your messaging ideas to try and get into that demand area of your segment that you're going after, share your messaging ideas with your personas to get feedback. These personas, after all, are data enriched, they're unfiltered, and they're there to help you connect better with your target audience or target segment. To finish off, I do get questions about this process. Oh, there are skeptics. There are many. So these are the 4 common ones, but then I open up the floor to invite you to ask yours. The top question I get is, the tools question. Obviously, which tool do you recommend to create these synthetic personas and talk to them? Claude, for the reasons that I mentioned earlier on in this call. Do synthetic personas replace real world research? The answer is no, it's a complement. But we all recognize that often we're time poor, budget poor, research is almost like this luxury that even unbelievably corporates with plenty in the coffers still don't do. But, this is another step on the road to producing great content. This is not to replace actually talking to your customers, actually picking up the phone, actually having focus groups. It's not a replacement, it's a complement. The other question I get is, how do we know that these synthetic personas actually give us real insights? Well, you can validate their outputs with first-party data. Or if you lack first-party data because you're starting at day 0, industry benchmarks, industry averages. And then finally, what ethical issues might I run into using synthetic personas as part of my creation process? Well, top of the list, data privacy. If you're uploading first-party data to public domain models, make sure you remove real names, make sure that you remove real numbers from it, like so dates of birth, bank card details, don't put any of that in the public domain. So make sure that you anonymize the data, especially the first party data when you're uploading it to Claude to enrich your personas. And then bias. It's really hard to remove bias from synthetic personas. It's very hard to remove bias from ourselves. I mean, it's a conundrum that we're never going to fully solve, but we can at least do audits and we can at least question our personas about their own biases and be aware of them. Okay. And we can actually enrich the personas with data to create a more diverse type of persona or a more diverse set of personas. If we realize that our personas are confessing to being biased towards one opinion or another based on their background, based on their social class, based on their, whatever their life experience. Let's call it that. So that's it, folks. I hope that today's masterclass provided you with something useful, something that hopefully I've been able to decode into something relatively simple and hope. But like, over to you guys if you do have any questions. And if not, then my conscience is clear.
It's amazing. I've actually learned loads there as well. That's not something I do at all. So this is why I wanted to chat to you, to be honest, because I'm not a marketer at all. So it's great to hear someone who actually knows what they're doing. I am going to put us back here. Here we go. And there is some questions. I realised I can't actually add people in, so I'm just going to ask the questions and appreciate that. I'm going to try this one. I'm going to do Roxana just ask some admin, kind of. Does anyone have all the questions used at the beginning of the brand strategy? So if you're going to get the deck afterwards, Roxana. Actually, is that fair? Okay, will they get access to the deck?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I think you're on mute, right? How did you build the RAG, a no-code tool, a managed service, or were you built the pipeline yourself, or everything fully custom? So what was happening under the hood, or was it just inside Claude?
Yeah, it was just inside Claude, to be fair. I mean, I anonymized the data that I had, first of all. So let's just take it from A to Z. And by the way, I'm not a tech person insofar, I mean, I work in ed tech, but I'm not a techie. I think that's the right way of saying it. So if I have a customer conversation, which I do frequently, I believe in them. I do them every week. I then make sure I have an AI note taker, so it transcribes the whole conversation. I will then thread that conversation through a tool to remove any personal data that's running privately. It's something I pay for. I mean, I could do it manually, but like when you've got swaths of data, maybe you don't want to do it manually, like deleting names and and then I will upload that to Claude raw. Okay, that's my process. Unfortunately, I don't have like this really impressive like automation to do that. I should build one. Matt, please help. But like at the moment, I'm not doing it at such a scale that I need automation. It's okay to do it. Like my conversations are like 1 to 2 per week. It's manageable. I can do it like step by step. But yeah, that's my process at the moment.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I am 100% a believer, or I've actually gone full circle now. I used to try and automate everything, and then I wouldn't actually get stuff done because I'd be too busy thinking about the system, when actually start it manual, find the breakages in the system, and then when you really need the automated, go off and do it, or just wait for the AI LLMs at the moment have taken something that was quite complex in terms of automation, and it will just go off and do it for you. So I'm definitely pro just copy pasting at this point. So well done, Kate, for sticking with your guns. I don't think no more questions, and I think that's a wrap anyway. Perfect. I'm just going to stop it. So thank you very much, Kate. Appreciate that.